Welcome back. President Cyril Ramaphosa announced the full implementation of the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act, or the BELA Act, marking a significant step in transforming South Africa's education system. While the Act is designed to ensure equal access to quality education for all children, it has sparked debate around the issues of language as well as admission policies. Joining us now for reaction is Basil Manuel, Naptosa's Executive Director. Basil, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. What do you make of the President's decision to say, let's go ahead after all of the consultation that has taken place and all of, I guess, maybe the information and the data that the President may have received and responses to his call? The final decision was actually where the National Council of Provinces left it off, and that is the full implementation of the BELA Act. What do you make of the President's decision?
Good morning, Aldrin, and thanks for having me. Aldrin, honestly speaking, we in Naptosa couldn't understand the rationale behind the 3 months. It just didn't make sense. But that being as it may, it happened, it's history now, and we are happy. We are elated that we are seeing the full implementation. We are waiting now for the promulgation so that we can get our teeth into the whole issue around directions or norms and standards, whatever you want to call them, so that those clauses that actually need them get them soonest and that we start running with this. It's an act that has a lot of great possibilities, but one that is also mired in a lot of political controversy. But for us, clauses like the grade R issue are far more important than some of the other things. And that is one of those that is so difficult to see implementation through our eyes currently, given the situation we are in financially, given our infrastructure situation, but it's one that we've got to work towards, and we are looking forward to that.
Yeah. What's your understanding of the so-called norms and standards and the regulations that the minister would have to come up with? Because on one end, the Democratic Alliance is saying that it is a win-win, but we know that whatever regulations or norms or standards that you come up with, they can't trump the legislation.
Absolutely. Alden, I want to dispel any sort of myth that we can see somebody coming in through the back door in the regulations to try and get an own type of clause redrafted. It's not going to happen. As unions, we have a seat at the table. Ours is to see that implementation happens in terms of educational possibilities, not political ones. And neither do we want to see that any agreement that was one-sided is being favored within this particular process. And we don't believe that there's even a possibility, given the wide range of people that will be involved in this. And my appeal to political parties is stay in your lane. You've done your job now. Now let's do education. And what we really want to see in terms of norms and standards is, first of all, those clauses that don't need norms and standards. There are a large number of them. Take, for example, the compulsory nature of schooling. It is there. What do you need to explain more? Parents must see that every school-going child is at school. And there must be no reason why a child is willfully kept out of school. That's the end of the story there. However, when it comes to, for example, the admissions or language policies, yes, there need to be some directions, but it is in the secondary directions that we will see more controversy. In other words, when the head of department has to apply his or her mind to the policies that have been submitted, because the initial regulations dealing with how you draft the policy, etc., there are certain things that are obvious, axiomatic, like it cannot be against the Constitution. It has to be within the parameters of the law. It cannot be discriminatory, etc., etc. Those things must be pretty obvious even to the people who've never heard of the Act before. But it is also how we want to see the next step take place. How will the judgment of whether this is in keeping or not in keeping? And I suppose that is where we are also going to have contestation from people who are looking for reasons to litigate. And given that we have become so litigious, I'm sure there will be some fights to be had. Yeah. And hopefully they will also settle things quicker, sooner rather than later.
Yeah, while you speak about the divisions amongst the political parties, but even within the unions, that there's an issue. Solidarity, of course, saying that they note the decision that has been taken by the president, but they still reserve the right to actually take this matter to court.
Well, Solidarity has been leading the fight against the BELA for their own reasons. They're not an education union. When I talk of the unions, I'm sorry, I'm actually referring to the education unions that must get on with the job, because we have a legislated right to be at the table. But I think Solidarity, being one of these that represent a much broader group of people, they too must get their teeth into the regulations. It is the entire public that will be drawn into commenting on these rules and regulations. And that is why the minister, in her presentation, had indicated that she hopes to see that her team gets these norms and standards and regulations done within the next 6 months, so that they can be open to the public for comment. And that's a laudable aim. Some of these may take a little longer, but we want to push to see that sooner rather than later we get this done, so that come 2026, full implementation is automatic. Because I'm being very deliberate saying 2026. Remember, 2025 is running already. We may not be there yet, but admissions have happened, choices of languages have happened, and a whole host of things are already in play. So much of this is only going to see real implementation in the next year.
So for now, what's your advice to parents about BELA and their concerns, for those who have concerns around the BELA Act? And as you've pointed out now, considering that you still have to have the public consultation that needs to take place, there's no chance at all that the Act could be fully implemented, promulgated for implementation during the 2025 academic year.
Aldrin, let me start with schools and school principals and governing bodies, and then come to parents. To the former, we have said, people stick within the parameters of the law. The Constitution is clear. The Bill of Rights is clear. You cannot be discriminatory, etc. Stick with that. If you do that, you are not going to fall foul of the expectations of the Act. If, however, you do, expect that your policy is going to be sent back for reworking. And that we are saying to principals, governing bodies, and parents. Be there, be part of the governing body processes so that your voice can be heard. But remember that there are other people's interests as well. And the narrow view of language, we need to dispel. The school doesn't have a language, the community has. And the school has to be a microcosm of the community. It can't be different from the community. And that is the rule of thumb that we have been using. We're going to be running a series of workshops in this regard as well, doing our share to help people see where the pitfalls may be and where the legislation lies that guides this process already.
Yeah. Do you think, though, that there is a legitimate claim that is made by Solidarity and the people that are part of the Solidarity movement to say that if the legislation does go ahead, it would mean that that Afrikaans as a medium of instruction would also be diluted?
It has been very disingenuous of all the groups that have tried to make this about Afrikaans. They've used it as a political football. I want to see Afrikaans protected as much as anybody else, but I want to also see that every other language is protected. And if this is about protecting a language and ignoring all the others, then we're hearkening back to apartheid days. And I don't believe this is about a language. If you look at the Act carefully, it is promoting mother tongue instruction, and that is important. So mother tongue instruction includes Afrikaans. Why will we highlight it especially more? And we must protect Afrikaans, but also every other language must be given its rightful place.